Hey y'all, welcome back. Today I'm doing the end of year book tag, which I think I'm a little late to do this year. I think it's kind of intended for end of September, early October, but I like using it as a check-in for my reading going into the end of the year. I just kind of forgot about it this year, but I feel like end of October is still like a good time to be checking in and thinking about what all I still need to read by the end of the year, what I kind of want to prioritize. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm also wearing my seasonally appropriate merch today. So I feel like it's a good day to be doing this tag. So we'll just dive straight into the questions. And the first one, let me grab the stack for this one. The first one is, are there any books you started this year that you still need to finish? And I would like to actually finish everything in my currently reading, but I think there's like 8 books in there, but I think most of them are now at this point books I've started this year. So things that I specifically started this year, we have Family by Laurie Frankel. Having trouble getting a hold of this book. I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. The Decagon House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji, and Critical Hits by various authors, edited by J. Robert Lennon and Carmen Maria Machado. So most of these I started early in the year, or kind of earlier in the year, I guess, except for Family, which I started in September, but most of these I started kind of late spring, early summer, I want to say. Although I think I was reading The Writing Retreat in February, and for various different reasons, I just didn't ever get around to finishing them. This is the most recent one, I think. I started this one earlier this month, but I kind of set it aside to focus on reading vampire books for Halloween, and I feel like I would love to go ahead and prioritize these and get them all kind of cleared out so that I have a clean slate going into next year. So, yeah. Answer to that question is quite a few, yes. Tons of them, actually. Question number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? And I think that The Red Palace by June Hur is going to be perfect for transitioning into the end of the year, because from what I remember of this, I had started it, I'd read like 40 pages or something, and at the time I was reading it, I ended up needing to set it aside to prioritize a few other things, but I was really enjoying it, and I seem to recall that this is set at like the turn of the seasons when things are getting colder. I might be wrong on that, but that is like the sense that I have from what I remember of it, and I just think it's going to be a great mystery for the kind of late fall, early winter time, especially because I just feel like November, December are great mystery months because it's kind of like cold and dreary. It's a good time to like cozy up with a mystery, and so I'm really looking forward to reading this one at the end of the year, and I just think it's going to be like perfectly atmospheric for this time. Question number 3, is there a new release you're still waiting for? And I actually just have 2. These were both that I pre-ordered. I had a few other things on my anticipated list, but in terms of books I actually pre-ordered, it's Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong, which I've heard a lot of good things about. I know this was indie published first, and it just sounded really interesting. It's like a fantasy dark academia, and again, I've heard really good things about it, so I'm really looking forward to that one. And then the other one, I'm also very excited for this one, is The Legacy of Arniston House by T.L. Huchu, which is the 4th book in the Edinburgh Nights series, which I love. It's such a good series. It's one of my favorites that I'm reading right now, and I read the 3rd book earlier this year, so I'm kind of glad that I don't have to wait real long to get the 4th book and read it, just because the 3rd book leaves off at such a like pivotal moment for Ropa, the protagonist, that I'm really excited to see like where the story is going to go from here, because there's like a major change in the status quo at the end of the 3rd book. Question number 4 is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? And I'm kind of trying to prioritize things that I've started and not finished, mostly. So one is The Fractured Dark by Megan E. O'Keefe. I read the 1st book in this series, which is the Devoured World series, earlier this year, like in March or April, and I was obsessed with it. I devoured that book in like 2 days. It was so good. And I went out and bought The Fractured Dark immediately, and for whatever reason, I just didn't pick it up and read it right after that. I think I'm a little afraid to go into it just because second book syndrome is such a thing, and you know, I'm a little afraid it's not going to live up to my expectations, but at the same time, I love this world, I love these characters. There's a lot of tension and really high stakes that are set up in the end of the 1st book, not the 2nd book, and I just really need to know what happens, so I really want to get to this one. And then I also would really like to read The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett, which is the only one of her books I haven't read yet. I have an arc of this one, and I want to go ahead and finish it. I need to like circle back around and restart it. I was slumping really hard at the time I tried to read this, and I just was not getting along with it at all, so I really want to give it a second chance because I've loved all of her other books, so I want to kind of try again on this one. And then the last one is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, which is not one that I need to like come back to or anything, but this is the book club pick for my work book club, so I need to read it for that reason. Question number 5 is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? And I think several of the ones I've already mentioned definitely could, like Blood Over Brighthaven, having heard good things about it, The Fractured Dark, having loved the previous book, The Twyford Code, an author I love, and also The Red Palace, also an author I love. So I think any of those could definitely become a favorite of the year, but I also have several others that I like to get to through the end of the year that aren't as quite as high priority as those 3 that I previously mentioned, but I think any of these could also be a favorite. So Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie, I loved the Blade itself. On Writing Well was given to me with the caveat that I had to read it, so I really need to get to this one as well, but I have really high expectations because the person who shoved this book into my hands was like, this changed my life, this changed the way I think about writing, so I'm really hoping that it has a kind of impact, a profound impact on me as well. And then I also have A Shadow Wall of Light by Fred Chappell, which this is actually a local author to me, but I've had this on my shelves for quite a while, and the premise just sounds like it's so up my alley. It's about like a shadow thief. It's a fantasy book about this guy who like becomes an apprentice shadow thief, and it's like a series of vignettes of like his adventures, and I think that just sounds like it's going to be so much fun, and it could very well be a new favorite for me. And then lastly, another one from an author I've read from and loved before, In the Shadow of the Ship by Ellie David R. This is another in her Zuya Universe series. I've read several of these now, and I have a good time every single time. So I'm intrigued. Also, this one sounds like it's a little more horror leaning, and I've been really in a horror mood this year, so I think that this could be like the perfect time for me to go ahead and read it. The final question number 6, is have you already started making reading plans for 2025? And the answer is kind of. I haven't picked like specific books that I want to read, other than I still have the ongoing list from the Our Fantasy Bingo, which has not been going well for me this year, but I still have that list. So like in terms of specific books, I guess there's that, but I haven't really started making plans in terms of like specific things I want to read, but I have started thinking about my goals for next year, and I have a couple of concepts that I want to incorporate into my reading. Most notably, I really want to start like a monthly blog series that I've been thinking about all year, and I also want to like keep up the self-destructing books list that I did this year. This was originally done by Becca from Becca and the Books, and I just thought it was really clever as a way of prioritizing books that have been languishing, or else realizing that you really don't want to read them. And it's actually worked really well for me this year. It's really helped me prioritize some things that have just been sitting around on my shelves for a long time, so I want to do that again. I'm also playing around with the idea of doing some quarterly TBRs instead of doing monthly TBRs, just because I've never been good at sticking to monthly TBRs, but I feel like if I set like a theme for the quarter, that maybe that will work a little bit better for me. If it's more like, here's some things overall I'd like to get to in the next couple of months, I'm wondering if that structure might work a little bit better for me. And what's the other thing? Oh, I also am kind of thinking about reintroducing a buying limit. I've started to move in the correct direction of like my TBR is going down now, and I would like to continue that trend. And I think now that I have reined in my book buying, I'm wondering if this will work a little bit better for me. It's not going to be like a total ban, gonna have some caveats, but I want to try and limit some of that book buying just so that this isn't growing, because I'm going to be moving sometime next year, so I need to not have more than this on the shelves. So those are kind of the things that I'm thinking about, but I'm not sure like what I'm going to be prioritizing exactly next year yet, but I have just some thoughts about things that I think will be fun to do or will be helpful to me in terms of prioritizing the books on my shelves. So that's kind of the extent of my planning so far. But yeah, that is all the questions. Let me know down in the comments below the answers to these questions for you. Your answers to these questions, in fact, if I was being concise. And it's been a long day. I'm sorry, words are hard. I do words all day, and then I try to words here, and it doesn't always work. But anyway, let me know down in the comments below what your answers to these questions are, and I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.